Call the public session to order. We'll do a Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Only votes taken in executive were to convene back into public, 5-0. I will entertain a motion to seal the executive session minutes pursuant to applicable provisions, Rhode Island General Law 42-46-4 and 5.
I'll make a motion to seal the minutes.
Motion by Mr. Randall. Do we have a second?
I second.
Second by Ms. Azanero. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And we will move, next item is hearing regarding the appeal regarding job elimination of administrator if requested by the employee, as it's listed on the agenda, and the employee has requested such. And I will defer to Mr. Scungio to conduct the hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone, Mr. Chairman, members of the school committee. So we're here tonight on an appeal, essentially, of a decision the school committee has made with respect to the superintendent of schools' recommendation to non-renew a position, which is the Director of Instructional Technology, which is a central office position. So the way we will format this tonight is I will ask the superintendent to take the podium at the far end of the meeting room, ask her a series of questions. The committee can ask her any follow-up questions if they think that's appropriate. Then Ms. Gendron, the employee who essentially is laid off in this case, will have the opportunity to do that. That will probably be the conclusion of the presentation to be made with respect to information or evidence from the administration. Then Ms. Gendron will have an opportunity to present any evidence that she wants to the committee. She could do that either by taking the podium and explaining, or she can call witnesses if she wants to do that. At that point, if either party has any concluding comments, they can make them. And then the committee will be left to vote on this matter at another occasion. I understand that there is not a notation on the agenda for tonight for that vote, so that will be taken at another evening, presumably a next session, but that would be whenever the committee decides to put that on the agenda. So with that in mind, with your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd ask Superintendent Crowley to take her position at the far end.
Please, thank you.
Good evening, Mrs. Crowley.
Good evening.
Could you tell us your full name and your current position in the school district?
Catherine M. Crowley, and I'm the superintendent in East Providence.
As superintendent of schools, do you have the overarching responsibility for budget development and proposal of the same to the school committee and ultimately to the town, to the city council for the city of East Providence?
Yes, I do.
And that comes in with your realm of responsibilities as superintendent of schools, is that correct?
Yes, it does.
In that regard, do you have certain general budget objectives that you need to abide by when you enact that responsibility?
Yes, of course we do, yes.
Could you explain to the school committee what your priority points are or reference points are when you assemble a budget?
I think one of the priority points would be a student-centered budget. Students always kept primary in any budget process. I think you want a high-quality learning environment to come from any type of budget that you propose. You want to be fiscally responsible to the taxpayers in East Providence when you propose a budget. You want to make sure your students have the resources they need to be successful in any type of budget. And those are some of the primary areas I think you look at when developing a budget.
Do you feel that it's also your area of responsibility to affect a efficient allocation of the resources, monetary resources that you have, in order to ensure that you have the largest impact on students in the district?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And does that require you, therefore, to examine positions in the district to make sure expenditure of money is the most efficient in terms of delivering the most and the best services to students that you can in the district?
Yes, it does.
And did you do that as you start to develop a budget for the upcoming fiscal year?
Yes, we did.
And did you consider in that regard whether or not there should be any layoffs of any positions in particular?
Yes.
And did you, how many layoffs did you have with respect to central office and other administrative positions?
Well, there was one in central office. There was one principal
Okay.
as far as the layoffs go.
And did those all come in within the context of the items or the priorities that you recently listed?
Correct.
Okay, for the committee. Thank you. Could you tell the school committee the position in central office that you decided needed to be laid off?
The position was instructional technology.
And is that Rebecca Gendron's position?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And is her contract up at the end of this school year?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Could you tell us why you considered her position to be eliminated?
The reason I felt that Rebecca's position could be eliminated is I felt that I could reallocate her job duties to other members of central office.
And did you develop a plan to do that?
Yes, I did.
No, I've just handed a document out to you that on the top says Identified Access and Responsibilities, Director of Instructional Technology. Is this a document that you developed?
Yes.
And could you explain to the school committee what this document constitutes?
Well, this document takes many of Rebecca's responsibilities and reallocates them to various other people in the department, in central office, I should say. Okay, there are various reports, such as the Student Information System, which is our Skyward system. It talks about many human resource systems that can be relocated. It talks about the IEP management, data management as well, and we've reallocated them to other directors.
And have
And,
you,
oh, and then just
I'm sorry.
on the bottom are RIDE reports that Rebecca does. Actually, for me, many of them I have to sign off on. And so we also took those reports and we reallocated those reports as well.
Now, as an aside, did you have an issue or a problem with Rebecca's job performance?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Did you find that she did a good job
She did an excellent job.
for the work that she did? Is
Yes,
that
she
correct?
did.
Okay. But were you able, based on this plan, to get her job duties and then distribute them to other individuals across the district, as you've outlined here?
Yes.
Have you actually done that already? Have most of these been distributed?
Well, we had to, because there are certain things that occur on a daily basis that have to be uploaded and sent to RIDE. Well, actually, are uploaded automatically, sent to RIDE. We get a lot of error messages back, and then we have to correct those error messages. So yes, we had to put it into implementation.
Okay.
Yes,
And we'll talk about why you
in
had to.
many areas.
We'll talk about why you had to do that in a minute, but you've basically been able to give your plan a run-through so far. Is that correct?
Yes, we met with RIDE for 2 days, 2 hours each day. The first day we met with RIDE, they went over the various reports we're responsible for. And then the second day with RIDE, they explained how to complete many of the reports. Mario Gonzalez is our contact down there, and he actually lives around the corner from the high school, and he's offered us a great deal of assistance in this matter as far as the RIDE reporting goes.
And in your experience as an administrator and the superintendent of the school district, do you believe that this plan is workable?
Yes, I do.
Will this plan cost the district any additional sum of money?
The plan itself, no.
Okay. So it's not going to cost you any money to affect this plan?
No.
Correct.
It will not.
So would it be fair to say that you'd be able to save the district effectively the cost of Rebecca's salary and benefits?
Yes,
And you would be able to reallocate that money?
yes, we would be able to reallocate.
Do you have a current list of priorities where if you have extra money in the budget, or you could save extra money in the budget, that you would be diverting funds?
Yes, the first priority is the high school needs 3 additional teachers this year. As we went through the scheduling process, we saw that. I would like to reallocate 2 middle school guidance counselors. We eliminated them 2 years ago, but as a result of the COVID and the social emotional issues that our students are experiencing, we'd like to replace those 2 guidance counselors at the middle school as well. We've had to hire a plant manager for the new high school in order for the high school to function properly next year. And we are in the process of hiring a technology specialist as well. We also have 4 contracts that we have to be able to support next year, 2 of which have gone through the school committee and have been passed through city council. So this coming year, because the contract for teachers is retroactive, as is the administrative assistant contract, which has passed, we need an additional $1.4 million to support that contract. Next year, we will need an additional $2.4 million, and in the third year, we'll need an additional $2.3 million. So those are all costs that we need to be able to have the money for.
Now, obviously, by eliminating Rebecca's position, you're not going to fund all those initiatives.
No.
But is it your plan to divert the savings from her position into those areas?
It is.
And those are more student-facing areas, is that
There
correct?
are more student-facing areas, and there'll be other areas that we'll have to reallocate funds from as well.
Okay. Now, when Ms. Gendron was given notice that her position is due to be eliminated next fiscal year, did you make provision and allowance for her to be able to apply for an alternate job in the district?
Yes, we did.
Could you explain that, please?
I had talked with the union president, Nick Shattuck, and I had asked him if Rebecca could go back into the union as she's a certified math teacher, and we needed 2 math teachers at the high school.
Did Rebecca apply for that position?
No, she did not.
Okay, but it was made available to her.
Yes, it was.
Now, you gave Rebecca her notice that you'd be recommending a layoff on approximately April 16th, 2021, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Has Rebecca been back to work since that date?
No, she has not.
Okay, and do you know why?
Rebecca is on FMLA leave.
Okay, was she originally on vacation time?
Yes, the following
Yep.
week was vacation week after I gave her the letter, and she was on vacation that week till the following Tuesday. Yes.
And she's currently now using sick leave under FMLA, is that correct?
Yes, she is.
Okay. Do you have any anticipated return date for that leave?
I haven't heard of any anticipated return date.
So as far as you know, she would be absent for the balance of the school year, is that correct?
Well, she could be, yes.
Yeah.
She could be.
So is that the reason, to circle back, is that the reason why you implemented your plan essentially immediately when she requested the FMLA leave?
Oh, yeah, there were certain things I had to do immediately, yes.
Okay. And that gave you the opportunity, as I mentioned before, to test your plan and to see if it worked?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And we are still in the process of testing that plan as we move along.
And to recap, her job duties have now already been distributed among other administrators and individuals in the district?
Correct, who are now in the process of getting the necessary security codes to go online, yes.
And the savings by elimination of this position are approximately $113,000.
I think it's
Excuse me,
$139,000
thank you.
with benefits, yeah,
Thank you.
yes.
I have no further questions. If Rebecca would like to ask the superintendent any questions at this point, now would be the appropriate time.
I'd like to ask after I present my
Now would be the time that you'd ask her the questions. So you have the opportunity to cross-examine her now. So now would be the time you'd ask her questions.
and I can't bring her up afterwards to ask again.
Well, we're not going to allow repetitive testimony, but now would be the time that you'd ask her questions. If you like, you could take the podium here. We could put the speaker on if it's easier for you.
Through the chair, I'm asked the committee if there's any objection to letting Rebecca make her presentation.
I would like to present first.
Make a presentation first? Is that possible? I'm asking.
So, and I'll defer to legal, again, not having experience in public hearings and process. With the recording, I'm going to trust that that requirement is standard procedure. Is that an accurate?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, she can put any witnesses on that she wants, but in terms of efficiency and the way the hearing's set up, the intention is when a witness provides evidence and that witness is on the stand and is available, that's the time that you cross-examine and ask that witness questions. You don't bring the same witness up multiple times in any hearing, in any context.
I'm not saying bring up
Yeah.
multiple times. I'm saying allow Rebecca an opportunity to do things in a certain order. And no, you only ask the superintendent one set of questions, but I don't see a legal issue, and this is not something that we do all the time either, I don't think, with allowing Rebecca to make her case, and then at that point, allowing Rebecca to ask all of her questions to the superintendent. I don't, that's just a sequence issue as far as I'm concerned.
Well, the committee could run the meeting any way it wants to.
So I have no objection to that, if the committee is okay. I have no objection.
Thank you.
Okay.
Either or, right? I think they both, just make sure that that button is green. You just say-
Green now.
All right.
Good evening, members of the East Providence School Committee. Thank you for allowing me to be here this evening to share information with respect to the reasons why eliminating this position of Director of Instructional Technology and Data is not in the best interest of the East Providence School Department and the students and families it serves. Just as a bit of history, my name is Rebecca Gendron, and I have had the honor and privilege of working and serving the community of East Providence and the families and students and staff of East Providence School Department for the past 35 years. I was hired in 1986 as the first female technology education teacher in the district, and one of the first in the state. And in the late 1990s, when I was teaching at Riverside, where I spent my 23 years teaching, in the late 1990s, when they were cutting back on programs like mine and downsizing them in the district, I developed the curriculum and proposed the technology and robotics program to the district that was approved and would eventually be taught at both middle schools. For years, I served as the drama director, the girls' track coach, and the robotics team coach. I have run and continue to run the state middle school robotics competition. I've done that for the past 20 years. As a technology teacher, I was regularly called on by administration in this district to assist faculty and staff in the integration and use of technology that was being introduced into the classroom. This led to the district administration approaching me and asking me 12 years ago to take the position of supervisor of instructional technology and data for the district. They came to me recognizing my ability not only to integrate technology into my classroom, but also train other teachers to do the same. And even though I was very content in the classroom as a technology teacher, I readily and happily embraced the opportunity to help students and families of this and staff of this district, and I believe I've done an exceptional job over the last 12 years. I met my amazing husband in East Providence over 30 years ago, and he retired in 2016, and I had hoped to retire from the district sometime after the 2022-23 school year. At the last school committee meeting, Chairman Montero referenced a difficult time in 2012 when people failed to do the hard stuff and ended up hurting our kids. I wholeheartedly agree with the chairman's assessment. During that time, I was just beginning in administration, and while almost everyone in the district was either being fired at central administration or jumping ship and going to other districts, I chose to stay even though I had many opportunities to leave. I chose to stay, and I was one of the last people standing, working with Interim Superintendent Dr. DeGose to help keep serving the educational needs of our students, staff, and families of this great community until a new administration was put in place. Reflecting back on Chairman Montero's remarks, those were difficult times. I remember coming home every week with a new job that Dr. DeGose gave me. One week, I was the Title I coordinator. The next week, he also made me the homeless coordinator. And that went on and on until a new administration came in. But ultimately, because I was a change agent and demonstrated the ability to adapt and accomplish this important task for the district, the new administration chose to keep me on and promoted me from supervisor to coordinator of instructional technology and data, and expanded my duties and my scope of work. For example, then I was also in charge of rolling out the technology components and the training that was associated with the new teacher and administrator evaluation system that RIDE had just instituted. I continue to successfully oversee the administration of that system to this day. When Mrs. Crowley became superintendent in the district, I was again promoted, this time to the level of Director of Instructional Technology and Data. This came with a title, additional responsibilities, 2 weeks of additional work per year. And while no additional compensation was ever offered, I didn't complain about it, but did this joyfully because it's important work and it had to get done. I have dedicated more years to this district than most of the current administration combined. Let me summarize this. I'm asked to come out of the classroom, and I'm made the supervisor of instructional technology and data because of my ability to integrate technology into the classroom, and I'm asked to train and help other teachers replicate that in their classrooms around the district. The next administration recognizes my effectiveness and success as the supervisor of instructional technology and promotes me and gives me the responsibility and expands my scope of work and makes me the coordinator of instructional instructional technology. And then finally, this current administration, led by Superintendent Crowley, recognizing my effectiveness and success, promotes me again, this time to the level of Director of Instructional Technology and Data. At each transition of leadership and at the district level, I'm given a larger leadership role with more responsibilities and a broader scope of work. The technology revolution that we've lived through in the last 15 to 20 years has had a profound effect and led to great changes in our lives, and nowhere is that more evident than in the field of education. I have been in the vanguard of technology instruction and made sure that the East Providence educational community has always been ready for the technological changes that were coming and continue to come. And no one saw it more than this year with COVID and what we had to do with technology in the district. I've always strived to keep this district ahead of the technological curve. I'm a pioneer in the area of instructional technology and have always used and would continue to use my abilities and talents to keep this district up to date and on the cutting edge of instructional technology developments. 12 years ago, a lot of the functions and systems that we have today did not even exist. I have trained and supported teachers, staff, administrators, and secretaries and paraprofessionals in this district in everything from email to Elmos to Excel, from Google for Education and RIDE evaluations to our student information system, Skyward. Regarding the elimination of this position and noting the document that the superintendent gave you, it seems there's a perception that a lot of this job is just a data entry job. And additionally, Chairman Montero mentioned that he was informed that this might be a case of duplicate function. It's unfortunate that the school committee didn't have all the facts and information necessary to make the decision that was in the best interest of the school committee. And to that end, I'd like to give you a copy of my job responsibilities and scope of work. As you can see, the jobs are highlighted in bold print, and then the details of the jobs are underneath it. Some of them are missing from Superintendent Crowley's list. Looking at this scope of work, as you can see, there's no duplicate function for the vast majority of this work. Duplicate function being that someone else in the district's already doing this work and we're just going to give them a little more to do that they already do. That's not the case here. No one in the district is the district testing coordinator. No one manages the student information system, including security, scheduling, helping both the high school and the middle school, and scheduling at the elementary school, creating custom forms, creating custom report cards and transcripts, family and student access, etc. I have 12 years of experience overseeing all aspects of the student information system. And if people think that this is just a reporting to RIDE out of the student information system, then they will see that that's not the case. No one manages the administration of the evaluation system. I created all the online custom evaluations for every staff member in the district, including teachers, administrators, custodians, secretaries, and paraprofessionals. That includes RIDE reporting and overseeing the administration of the professional development portal. I led the district that created and implemented the K-12 computer science curriculum last year. Part of that work included the high school computer science work-based learning grant. Through my work with the state's CS4RI program, I have trained many of the elementary and middle school teachers in our district and around the state to teach the computer science in part of their curriculum. I support IT tickets regarding the district programs such as Clever, Skyward, and iReady. And no one, and Superintendent Crowley left this off of her list as well, no one submits the critically important federal civil rights data collection. I've been doing that for the last 10 years, and we've always had a clean slate with the federal government with no legal issues related to this important civil rights data collection. It's also a collection that's due next year. Regarding duplicate function, these jobs will not be dispersed to departments that are already doing them. They will be added to already overworked departments and will require training, overtime, and perhaps even hiring new people, so not much of a cost savings there. The IT department is already working overtime. Skyward training is expensive and can't just be handed off to schools because someone has to oversee it at the district level. I'm part and often support the state Skyward Users Group to help answer questions for people in other districts. And even in cases where this is a duplicate function, it's always done with putting students first and supporting staff. For example, resetting student passwords. If a teacher has to put in an IT ticket, it may take a while to get the reset depending on how busy the IT department is. I get that reset request and I reset it within minutes. That means there's virtually no instructional downtime for students during the school day. I've reset over 1,000 passwords between September and April. That's 1,000 fewer IT tickets that you never hear about. That's 1,000 students not missing any instruction. And that's 1,000 families who know their children are still engaged in learning. Additionally, all the technology coach positions that were instituted a number of years ago have been eliminated over the last few years. And I routinely support teachers, staff, administrators, and families with technology issues. Now, regarding the data position, I think I need to stress this. It's important to discuss the data portion of this job. When Superintendent Crowley came to East Providence and I first started overseeing the district data, we discovered a lot of inconsistencies and errors that were being reported to RIDE because of the lack of central oversight of the data reporting. These errors oftentimes can result in the loss of district funding. Superintendent Crowley gave the directive that nothing could go to RIDE unless Rebecca Gendron reviewed it first. That was repeated a long time, over many years. Through collaboration with the data manager and all departments and all schools, I put systems and checks in place that minimized errors or quickly discovered them so they could be corrected. When the district data manager position was eliminated 3 years ago, a decision I did not agree with, I was given the vast majority of work and responsibilities associated with this position. Again, as I've always done, I took on this role with the utmost professionalism and conscientiousness and have successfully managed the district's data ever since. I did this joyfully because it's important work that had to get done. I never gave a thought to the fact that additional compensation was not offered, nor did I ask for it or complain about it. I've been a team player for all of my 35 years in this district. Every school district in the state, from the smallest to the largest, from Block Island to Providence, has a district data manager, a single point of contact to deal with RIDE, to fix errors, to solve problems, and to make sure the data is clean and accurate. And though some may believe that RIDE does not look at the data they collect, I can assure you that they not only look at it, but review it carefully and regularly inform districts when there are errors or discrepancies that need to be reviewed or corrected. By not having a single point of contact data person, by giving these reports back to all these different departments so they can just turn in their reports to the state, the East Providence School District may find itself in the same position where it started, with inconsistent and inaccurate data being reported to RIDE. Data that affects everything from the very important federal rights civil data collection to state and national testing to state and national funding. Eliminating this position will burden departments that are already overworked and not prepared or equipped by training or experience to do this work. Over the last few years, the registration office, which you've noticed has picked up a lot of the jobs here, has lost the data manager and the transportation secretary. And while there are plans to give them another secretary, he or she will only be a .5 secretary because they'll also have to work for facilities and maintenance. The IT department is already overburdened and working overtime, getting paid overtime. This is before being assigned any of my work. Pupil personnel went from 2 directors and 3 secretaries down to 1.5 directors and 2 secretaries. But we're going to give them more work also. How much more work can we add to principals and assistant superintendents' plates? Are you going to have to hire and train new staff? To simply say we've moved responsibilities to departments and people who by inexperience or lack of training are not equipped to do this work does not mean the work is going to get done in an effectual manner. Essentially, the district is rolling the dice in some very vital areas. Everything from the critical federal civil rights data collection to eligibility for state and federal funding. There does not appear to have been much forethought into the decision to eliminate this position because it's apparent that the decision makers were not aware of the full scope of the work that I do and how I interface and collaborate with every department and every school in the district. And I'd like to just talk about Chairman Montero at the last school committee meeting stated, and Mr. Scungio stated the same thing tonight, that all the administrators that had positions eliminated had been offered other jobs in the district. I was not offered a job when I was given the non-renewal letter on Friday, April 16th. Actually, Superintendent Crowley has been promising me a job on numerous occasions over the last 2 years. Knowing that I was eligible to retire, she offered that when I was ready to retire, I could stay on in a .5 position, doing much of the same work I'm currently doing. And that was acceptable to me. I believed her offer to be a genuine one because it's been an institutional and district practice in the past and continues to currently be one as Superintendent Crowley has made an offer, the same offer, and fulfilled that promise to others in the district. One of them is currently a director in a position like mine. On April 16th, when the superintendent said she was cutting this position to help pay for the new teacher contract and the new technology position at the high school, I reminded the superintendent of her promise and told her I would be willing to retire at the end of my contract and work in a .5 capacity to save the district some money. She said it was not an option at this time. So you see, there was no job offer at the time that I was non-renewed. It wasn't until a week later, via an email from Mrs. Mamoni, that I was offered a job teaching math at the high school next year, and that I needed to accept that offer within a week. It's obvious that this was an afterthought, and not comparable work to what I do or did in the district. Maybe someone had second thoughts about how you should treat someone with 35 years of exceptional, faithful service to the district. And finally, there was no expectation of not having my contract renewed. No other administrators were renewed yet, and still haven't been. There was no indication given to me that the elimination of my position was imminent. And of course, given Superintendent Crowley's repeated promise to keep me on in a .5 position after I retired, why would I believe that this position would be eliminated? Fundamental fairness and common courtesy extended to an exceptional employee, especially one who's worked faithfully for 35 years, would dictate that you let the person in that position know at the beginning of the academic year so there could be a smooth transition or compromise or opportunity to go to another school district. Instead, even though the non-renewal letter was dated Monday, April 12th, I wasn't informed until 3 p.m. on Friday, April 16th, an hour before I was to leave on a vacation, which they knew about, to see my children that I haven't seen in a year. Reflecting back now, I know that this decision was one that was in the planning for a while. Yet when I received the non-renewal letter on April 16th, Mrs. Mamoni said they felt it was better to give it to me sooner rather than later. Really? Sooner would have been back at the start of the school year when I could have taken advantage of the early retirement offered to teachers back in the fall. Sooner would have been back at the beginning of the school year when I could have pursued another employment opportunity, which regularly come across my desk. And sooner would have at the very least been before the new year, when I could have made plans to meet with the retirement board and put in my request and get the severance pay with the district before the February 1st deadline. I have been adversely affected by the school department's failure to give me timely notice. Non-renewal 10 weeks before a contract ends for a person who's displayed 35 years of unwavering loyalty, dedication, and exemplary service to the wonderful students, families, and staff of this district is not how this should end, and is definitely not an example of townie pride. What's changed from Superintendent Crowley's directive that nothing goes to RIDE without Rebecca Gendron checking it first, and her promise that when I retire, I can come back and work .5 position, to now your position's being eliminated and your contract non-renewed? Is there less need for technology training and data management? Clearly not, as they're hiring a technology specialist at the high school. I would argue that in this day and age, it's needed more than ever. Fundamental fairness and equity compel a different result than the one that was decided at the school committee meeting, particularly since I've had to forego benefits and opportunities that I could have taken advantage of if I had been provided appropriate and timely notice at the beginning of the 2020-21 academic year. I relied, to my detriment, on representations made to me on many occasions by Superintendent Crowley that are at odds with the notion of fairness, integrity, and equity. I would propose that the school committee reverse its decision to eliminate this position and I would propose the school committee reverse its decision to eliminate this position by remanding it back to the superintendent with an eye to allowing me to accept the offer previously made of retiring and working in a reduced .5 position at least through the 2021-22 school year. This will allow me to continue my responsibilities while at the same time allow the school committee and administration to accomplish in part their goal of saving the district money. This could be a mutually beneficial outcome and considered a win-win for the school department and for me. And incidentally, the job offer of the math teacher at the high school. If you hired a first-year teacher in that math position instead of me, a top-step teacher with multiple advanced degrees, you would already save enough to pay for 80% of my .5 position. I believe after 35 years, I've earned this opportunity, and if I'm fortunate enough to continue in this position, you will have a 100% employee at 50% pay. Otherwise, this would send the wrong message to the school department and would adversely affect morale and confidence and leadership in the department. I would just like to reference a couple things that Superintendent Crowley said. And then be happy to answer any questions and perhaps talk to Superintendent Crowley. First of all, regarding my FMLA. So my 85-year-old mother with the heart condition just got over COVID. And she thankfully is recuperating and doing well. And I was blessed to be able to take some FMLA time to her. For her, she's a little wobbly on her feet. She gets tired very easily and needs a little assistance around the home and to getting to doctor's appointments and doing other things. She is on the mend. I don't see myself staying out as long as I need to. I could easily take the time just to take her to doctor's appointments and give her some help, but it's not a dire situation anymore as it was before. So that's my FMLA situation. Just wanted to let you know about that. So I don't know if you have questions for me.
Are there any questions from, trying to think if we want to let you ask your questions of superintendent so that we can
I can do that.
be complete with that process.
Yep.
Committee's pleasure on that. Or if there are questions from the committee for Ms. Gendron, it's
I have
Yeah, no,
questions, but I can wait either way, whatever you want to do it.
I just think,
Joe?
I just think procedure-wise, I think the first thing that you mentioned would be the best.
To have superintendent come up
questions,
and
and
then...
then we can proceed
Yes,
with
okay.
questions, yeah.
Superintendent Crowley, if you could please come forward. Thank you.
Yes,
Superintendent Crowley, were any other positions considered for layoff in administration,
in central office?
in central
Yes.
office? And if so, why was my position eliminated as opposed to?
Your position was eliminated because I felt your position least affected students directly as opposed to some of the other positions. And I'd like to make some corrections. May I do that? Or do you want me to continue to let her in? All right, because there are some, yeah, okay.
Mrs. Crowley, did you offer that I could, when I retire, that I could come and work in a .5 position in this district?
I remember several times having that conversation with you in a very positive manner, saying, I hope when you retire that you would come back in a .5 position. Absolutely, I said that. However, I'm going to correct you on the day I came and gave that notice to you. Cheryl Maimone was with me at that time when you asked me if you could work part-time. I said, I cannot answer that right now. I have to ask the school committee, was my answer to that question that day. So let's make sure that we correct that.
Fine.
But yes, I did say that often to you because of the quality of your work. This has nothing to do with the quality of your work. I did.
There are other, I don't know if you have questions about other things that I stated here. I would have liked to have had some of the directors or principals here. Superintendent Crowley, is it the case that you've asked people, you told people they don't need to be here this evening?
I didn't want the directors involved, that they did not have to be here, absolutely not.
But why is
But
that?
they would be coming to support me, and I did not want them involved.
Except that you've given them jobs here that I could question them about, and
Chairman,
No, that's,
if I'd like to appear.
Hold on.
First of all, this is just an argument between the parties, it's not appropriate.
Agreed.
So Ms. Gendron has questions that are relevant to this proceeding, she certainly could ask them.
Okay.
She certainly could have asked people to come and testify on her behalf if she wanted to. She hasn't done that, this was her opportunity. So I'd ask that we...
That's fine. Superintendent Crowley, have people already begun doing some of the reporting and sending information to the state besides the automatic data transfer?
yes.
So what's been done so far with reporting?
The ESI reporting has gone into the state. Oh, yes, special education reports have gone through down into the state. Mrs. Maimone actually tomorrow will be sending the certification report that's due at the end of the month. As I told you, we've met with RIDE on various reports. The automated reports are going down regularly to the state. We have a appointment with Keith Gamlin on testing as well. So we have kept everything going as far as that's concerned.
Okay.
And I'd like to mention the OCR report. I failed to mention it specifically. However, I'm very aware of that OCR report, which is going to the Human Resource Department, and that particular person has experience in completing that report.
That's all I have, thank you. You have questions for
Thank
me?
you, Superintendent. Questions from the committee for Mrs. Gendron?
I just have a question. Ben, are you going to be asking any questions?
No, no. I just have some follow-up comments.
Okay.
You said, did you have a question? Oh, you had a question for Ben. Okay. I couldn't hear. Before I ask,
I just have a statement. I just want to thank you for explaining FMLA and why you were out. I don't think that was necessary to us, this group, but I appreciate it, and I'm very glad that your mom is on the mend.
Thank you.
And I'm very glad that you do plan on coming back soon.
one question that I had, and again, if someone has something, please just let me know. Some of the duties, and thank you for this, the list and giving us another perspective. Some of the duties on here rightfully are not necessarily still being done, that kind of,
Such as,
well, I would imagine doing the scheduling for the schools where with.
well, I don't do the high school scheduling. The high school's always done their own scheduling after the first couple of years. I support the middle school in scheduling, and I do work with the elementary schools to schedule.
So I would just, and this isn't necessarily a question for you, but when you said that, I think to empowerment and responsibility of my, principals to.
I totally
schedule the
agree with
programs.
principal empowerment. However, principal empowerment does not mean that principals have to do all the work.
That's not, no, I'm just speaking of scheduling.
Yeah, but
which-
even with
which is-
scheduling.
Which is critical. Okay.
That there's a standard schedule, it needs to be put into, at the elementary level, it needs to be put in the system. The
Mm-hmm.
principal doesn't make decisions about it because the schedule's the schedule, but it has to be entered in. The secretaries need help. I do that with them every year. And the principals at the middle school often work with me and consult with me. I've done scheduling for 20 years, even at the
Yeah.
middle school when I was teaching there, I did scheduling.
Oh, yeah, no, I know that you were involved. I was just saying, as far as they function going forward. And then, question that I kind of, when I look at this, with the duties being as vast and, necessary, how would anyone, and again, I speak to the quality, and I've said it privately and publicly, if I was running a company and had a position and, you were an applicant, without a doubt. So, let me put that forward. This is never about, I think nothing but the best of anything that you get into. But how would you perform those duties? You say to come back part-time,
Right.
but then the duties are not, but then they're too much to be allocated to a list of people. So how could one person do it in part-time?
Right.
And whereas it would be too much.
So these people out here can attest to my schedule, that I work, that I come home from work and I work, and I'm happy to just answer things and help people after hours, often nights, late at nights. And as Miss Texera stated in the last, in her comment last time, they contact me anytime. My cell phone is part of my address and my email. They contact me and call me, and I'm happy to work. And I work a lot. My kids are grown, they're out of the house, and so I do work. How can I do this? In a half-time, I can do this. I would most likely certainly give some of these things back, but the majority of the things I can do because I've been doing them a long time. I can do them in the evenings, I do them at work, I can do them part-time, and still get the job done.
Right, okay.
Yeah, no, you can.
Yeah. No, like I said, it's not a question to your
No, I
work
know,
ethic
I know.
or the, above and beyond. It's more, I think from a position as I'm going to put something on paper, right? Because in my world, and I can relate, my phone is never off and I'm always working. But if I'm going to hire someone for a position that is part-time, I'm not going to hire them with the expectation that they're really working full-time, but I'm going to compensate them for part-time. So, so I don't make that assumption.
Right.
That, your commitment or anyone's commitment in that situation would be 0.5.
Yep.
And that was the question is, what duties would be covered in a 0.5 position without going above and beyond, so. Any other questions from the committee?
I have some questions. Thank you for your presentation. I'd like to ask Mr. Scungio one first. In this entire process, were there any, asking the question, were there any state laws broken?
None that I know of, based on the facts that I know. No.
Okay, so everything was done legally,
Yes.
whether, no other judgments on anything else, but
Yes.
everything was done legally?
I understand your point, yes. Everything was done legally.
Okay. Rebecca, when you received the initial information that was Friday before
April 16th,
vacation?
yep. Mhm.
Okay. Was there a representative from HR present there?
Yes, she was.
She was there, okay. And you've had communication with HR since then?
Only to turn in my FMLA paperwork, and only to get that email from her a week later, from Cheryl Mamoni a week later, offering me the math position at the high school.
Okay, and did you ever respond to Cheryl about that .5 position?
I did not, because I felt like you hadn't made a decision on this job yet, and why should I be replying to a position at the high school that I don't know what your decision was going to be at that point, and why I had to rush into a decision like that. I chose not to respond to that, not to accept that offer at that point. And additionally, as I said, it was a job that's not comparable to the work I did. Yes, I'm certified in secondary mathematics, haven't taught it in the district. I was a technology education teacher, and I'm a technology specialist. So,
Okay, and I just want to be sure about this one more time. You had no indication that your job was going to be eliminated until
until that day, I had no
April
indication, although I must say that looking back now, there were a lot of instances that I look back and I say, oh, yeah, I should have realized that they were looking at my job at that point. For example, when they asked the vice principal at the high school to take over scheduling, and she was told she was going to do scheduling and not to say anything to me. And then that was back in January. And then, some of my rights were taken away from the Google for Education work. Why? Was I not doing my job correctly? Why were those rights being taken away? So now I look back at those things and I think, yeah, they've been planning this for a while. Even little things like the school calendar, the district calendar. Every year I put out that district calendar. I work with the secretary, the administrative assistant in the superintendent's office. I create the calendar, the published calendar, the nice one with all the little squares, with all the little blocks, with all the little dates on it. And I put that together, and then Sharon and I work on dates for that, and we get that to the superintendent, and then she gets that to you. But this year, when the time came out to do that, and I asked the superintendent if she would send me the state calendar so I could create that for us, she said, no, Sharon's doing that, not doing it. And I look back now, like she was already thinking of replacing my position with other people's positions.
Other than that, though, there was no written, verbal,
There was
email?
no indication whatsoever. It was, and as you may notice from people around the district, it was shocking. I was shocked. Shocked. There was no reason, especially given the offer that the superintendent had made to me to continue on in this position, realizing, she was the one, Superintendent Crowley was the one that recognized the importance of the data for the district, and the work that I was doing, and she was the one that said to me, when you're ready to retire, come back and stay with us and work in a .5 position. So there was no indication that this was a job that was going to be eliminated. And additionally, no one else had had their contract renewed, and they still haven't. So no one else, everyone was in the same boat. We were just thinking, well, it's just taking a little longer than usual, and we'll get our contracts renewed. No indication whatsoever.
Okay, not having been an employee of anybody's for a long time now, I can still remember some of the implied, other than verbal or written communications. I wonder what they're trying to do to me here. And so there's wondering, but you never raised the question beyond that. Did you ever approach anyone and say, is something going on? Is there a plan?
I did. I approached the assistant superintendent and I said, is something going on? Exactly my question. And
Would've
she
been mine,
said,
yeah.
no, of course not. Why would they get rid of your job?
Okay, I thank you very much for your presentation tonight. That's all I have. Thank you.
I just have one question. Are you ready to retire?
Oh, I've said that. I said I would retire at the end of my contract and work in a .5 position.
Any other questions of the committee? Thank you very much for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scungio.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a couple of comments in response. And I'm not going to dispute facts. You heard Mrs. Crowley speak and give her opinion, and you heard Ms. Gendron speaking and give her opinion. It's an unusual circumstance where somebody comes and they advocate for their job in the way that Rebecca came before the committee tonight, explained to you, her fairly illustrious career in the school district and how wonderful and how helpful it's been. It was interesting that she noted a couple of times that Mrs. Crowley was so happy with her and her job work that she actually had a discussion of what would you do post-retirement? Could you come back and continue to help us? So there's plenty of evidence and information that you have that indicates that people in the district, like Rebecca, they think she did a fine job. She is not here for disciplinary reasons. Something must have happened that was different from the point when the superintendent said, could you come back for a .5 even after you retire? Obviously, something happened. But it's not about Rebecca, no disrespect intended. This proceeding is not about Rebecca. It's not about the quality of Rebecca's work. In fact, the superintendent even made the way clear to have Rebecca continue to work in a different job for the district. What this is about, and we've seen it in a lot of communities, if not most of the communities, is this is about budget, and it's about money, and it's about allocating appropriate resources. So you have a well-respected superintendent that has begun to prepare for the budget. She looks through every aspect of the budget, and she's required by the basic education program to make sure that there's an efficient allocation of assets for the benefit of kids. Every superintendent in her position in every single district and every single year has to make very difficult decisions. There are some districts this year that have given 20 to 25 layoff notices to teachers and cut programs because of money. You're more blessed than most. But you do have mounting costs that are built into contractual budgets to pay teachers a fair salary. You do have other requirements. Expenses increase every single year, and some positions have to go along the way if you want to run an efficient business, which a school district is, and make sure that you're allocating most of your resources for child-facing activities. That's why the school committee is here. And I don't have to tell you that because all of you ran for office for that reason, and I know that. And I know the kind of school committee members you are. So your basic decision is not whether Rebecca deserves to be continued employment until she's ready to retire, and she's just admitted she would at the end of this contract. It really is the superintendent's information to you tonight is that that information is needed in other areas. And in her experience as an administrator, and as you know, she's one of the most highly thought of superintendents in the state, is that she can get Rebecca's duties, she can fairly and equitably split them up among other administrators and other departments, and they could accomplish what she was doing. Even though what Rebecca did, she did in an extraordinary fashion, an exemplary fashion. But that work can be done by other people in such a manner that that money can be saved and allocated for the programs that face students. And that's really the decision tonight. Going forward, when you discuss a budget, you could decide to allocate money for a part-time position. Rebecca can certainly apply for that position when it's made available, if you decide that she's the person for that job. I was struck and left a little confused how somebody could do a job with the breadth that she described, to be frank, in a part-time position. I'm not sure that's possible. I think the job would have to be extremely pared down. But superintendent, I think, would have to tell you and advise you whether or not it's even necessary to do that. Because we're not in the business of holding jobs for people because we like them or they've been extraordinary employees. Our job is expending taxpayer funds in an equitable fashion and make sure that you get the biggest bang for the buck for students. And I think that's what the superintendent is telling you tonight. You can tell by her demeanor, she doesn't like this decision, and she doesn't want to be here any more than Rebecca wants to lose her job. So you hire her to make hard choices. That's one of her hard choices. So I'd ask you to consider that in terms of the information the superintendent has given you, and focus not on Rebecca's outstanding career, because that's not really relevant to your decision. Really, it's to focus money on money and students and how to give them the best education that you can. So thank you for hearing both sides tonight. I know you don't have a vote on your schedule, so,
Not on this, we do not.
yep, so the superintendent looks forward to a vote when you make it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the committee?
I guess I'll make a comment. Just want to say thank you. You answered all my questions, so it was very concise. Thank you.
So, that being said, ironically enough, the next item on the agenda is to consider and vote to approve a layoff, teacher layoff. It was in your packet, so we're not going to state the name or position, but I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Brandel. Do we have a second? We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I hate this job. I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Any announcements from the committee? I think we have,
I think I made that announcement right before I said what I just said about what I just seconded.
okay. Yes, Ms. Azanella?
Saturday is the high school tour from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. If you do attend, please wear a mask, and only the first floor is handicapped accessible. The other floors are not, unfortunately. But I just wanted to give a reminder to the community.
And then we have our Memorial Day Parade as well. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Ms. Boshain. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Second by Mr. Brandel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?